Coming up tonight on YCU, a Hartford man has offered a cemetery plot to the Boston Marathon bombing suspect who was gunned down by police. Governor Peter Shumlin announces to focus more on budget cuts and not raise Vermont taxes. And we have highlights from the Lead versus Hanover boys baseball rivalry game. With more news, sports, and weather, stay tuned. It's time for YCU, your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region and central Vermont. News, sports, weather, public affairs, and all that's happening in our area. The news on YCU, your local view.
Good evening and welcome to YCU. I'm David Carmichael. A retired Vermont teacher has offered a spot in his family's cemetery plot to the family of the Boston Marathon bombing suspect who died following a shootout with police. Paul Keene made the offer on Monday on his blog. He says the only condition he would attach to allowing the body of Tamerlan Tsarnaev to be interred into the plot at Mount Carmel Burying Ground in Hamden, Connecticut, is that it be done in memory of his mother. The Valley News of Lebanon, New Hampshire reports that Keene says his mother taught him to love thine enemy. The Massachusetts funeral director handling Tsarnaev's remains has been unable to find a cemetery where he could be buried. Tsarnaev's family has received a number of offers of cemetery plots. The city of Lebanon will be flushing water mains through hydrants next week. A press release says this is to maintain water quality in the distribution system. The flushing will take place between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. Residents and businesses should check their water before using it. The press release also says that if the water is discolored or dirty, let the cold water tap run for 5 to 10 minutes and the water should clear up. One day after a law change that makes it easier for hot water energy districts to do business in the state, Concord-based Hot Zero won the approval to start a pilot program in the city, according to a report in the Eagle Times. The City Council unanimously approved a measure Wednesday night, allowing the company to negotiate the necessary easements with the city. The pipes will go under the sidewalks and under the streets of the Opera House Square district of the city. They hope, if all goes well, to have the system up and running by November. The volunteer committee that led the campaign to resurrect the new Bartonsville covered bridge after it was destroyed by Tropical Storm Irene has announced preliminary plans to erect a visitor kiosk using the leftover remains of the original 1870 structure. The Eagle Times had a report that says that Susan Hammond, a Rockingham Select Board member and Rebuilding History campaign leader, appeared near her Bartonsville home yesterday morning to scope out possible locations for a new information center expected to be shaped after an iconic Vermont covered bridge. Governor Peter Shumlin, Vermont House Speaker Shap Smith, Senate President Pro Tem John Campbell, and key legislative leaders announced yesterday an agreement to avoid raising taxes on Vermonters and instead focus on spending cuts and efficiencies to achieve a balanced budget for the state, according to a report by WNTK. Members of the House and Senate Appropriations Committee will focus on reducing spending by about $10 million through cuts and efficiencies, eliminating the need for any additional tax increases. A special joint House committee is meeting to discuss its research into whether New Hampshire should legalize a casino. The joint House Finance and Ways and Means committees will hear from 3 subcommittees assigned to research revenues, regulations, and the impact on the state and community if a casino is approved. They reported to the full committee this afternoon. The Vermont State Senate has approved a new compromise on legislation allowing physicians to prescribe lethal medications to terminally ill patients who request it. The bill will now head back to the House. The new Senate-passed version keeps safeguards sought by the House in place for 3 years and then changes to a more stripped-down version. The Vermont State Senate has also approved legislation that would remove criminal penalties and replace them with civil fines, like a traffic ticket, for possession of up to an ounce of marijuana. The bill now goes back to the House for consideration of the Senate's changes. After the break, meet a guy named Chuck Crush, the director of the VNA of Vermont and New Hampshire.
The YCU News continues in a moment.